So, I don't know about all ye aspiring creatives and dreamers and all those in between, but sometimes the urge just hits me to go absolutely drown a character design in as much trim, filigree, and detail as inhumanly possible. Is it logical? No. Is it ethical? Absolutely not. But in some cases, one just has to look at a design and turn off the part of the brain that wonders how to make it easy to animate or put in a comic. We are not thinking in that realm today. Because today I am taking the absolutely simple and cartoonish designs from the Amazing Digital Circus, grabbing meaning where it doesn't exist, and turning every single one into a decked out, self-indulgent masterpiece. Or travesty, I don't know, we'll see what happens. Either way, I am scratching the itch here. What else are we supposed to use our hyperfixations for? Also, spoilers for episode 7, I guess, because I'm likely to yap about it a bit in this video. You can bet your buttons oh my god, that sounds so weird. That I'm gonna take that one scene with Jax and just sprint with it for his design. So, disclaimer, these are not redesigns or a commentary on the designs in the show. These are just fan designs and the result of me having a
manic episode
and throwing whimsy at the wall. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So first things first is the mood boards. I haven't really used these all too much in the past, but I got a hold of Milanote and it just scratches all the bits of my brain that result in me kind of zoning out and just plastering reference images to a crazed corkboard for several hours. I started with Pomni, who I had the clearest vision for. Essentially, out of all the cast, she's the one that changes the least when it comes to her basic construction. I wanted to take her jester outfit and just completely exaggerate every detail. Her hat, make that thing ridiculously large. The long tails with the stars at the end create a really fun silhouette, and I gave her shoulders and what do we call these shorts? Bloomers? No. Shorts. We're gonna go with shorts. I cranked the shape and size up to 100 and left the general outline for her torso kind of plain. I wanted Pomni to look really large, as in her presence is really apparent but also uncanny. She's got extra long legs and a steady gait when she walks. Her physique is elegant yet sturdy, and her face is smaller and extremely delicate. It's funny too, because I maintain the fact that she's smaller than everyone else in the cast. You know, kind of how Lucifer from Has-Been is super short, but he's actually 5'9", and everyone else is just massive? Yeah, we're going that direction. While these designs aren't supposed to be dark or horror versions by any means, I did want them to give off an ominous energy. There's nothing I love more than an entity that seems normal at first glance, but also has an air about it that just screams other. You know, kind of like... It's funny what you notice about a character's design when you actually have to draw them. I didn't notice that Pomni had only 3 eyelashes on the upper lid, on the left eye, and lower on the right. So, of course, I just stretched those babies out and made them a part of her dramatic makeup. But this is where we get into the drawing meaning where there isn't really part of the video. I wanted Pomni to have so many celestial motifs all over her body. Stars on the end of her hat, on her leggings and gloves, on her chest and abdomen, just everywhere. There's a reason for this though. In the alternate version of the circus, I imagine that each character has a gimmick, kind of like Gangle and Zooble in canon, but a lot more essential to the inner workings of the world. Pomni is the torchbearer, because in the original story, she's given the role of the one who holds the group together. You know, like in this song. We don't know what the dynamic in the circus was like before she arrived, but after the group goes through all that they do with Pomni present, she fell into this constant for all the other characters. So, in this alternate universe, Pomni's character is cursed to always carry the light, literally lighting the way for the rest of the cast. She's their North Star and anchor in an otherwise doomed world. When she first arrives, she has to carry it in her hands, which means she can almost never use 2 hands at one time. I like to think that eventually she joins forces with Gangle and Zooble to create some kind of lantern to put the flame in so she can finally have her hands free. It follows her, and even if she tries to throw it away from her, it spawns right back. But it can be useful on adventures since it's both warm and infinite. It can't be put out by water or wind or anything. It's basically a part of her avatar. Alright, so once I got all the colors on there, I went crazy with the extra detail. When it comes to the gold trim, I laid it on just about any service that looked lonely. On the crown of her head, I put the laughing sun, which is accompanied by 2 moons. I added the moon to her design just because I thought it would be fun to have the light of the sun represent the red half of her color scheme and the moon represent the blue. Either way, she's always a beacon of light. Also, I don't know what it is about me and oracle cards, but I ended up going this direction with these designs just like I did with my steampunk has-been designs. I had a really hard time deciding what I wanted the graphics for each character to be, and found myself married to the idea of a vintage carnival poster. Which is funny, by the way, because after I decided this, I went to ye old Japanese bookstore Kinokuniya and found this. Since when? Since when? I have a hard time believing that I missed this collab. I mean, this is glitch. I expected something a little more along the lines of this.
What the is going on?
Anyway, they use a similar style for the cover of the manga, which gave me a wonderful springboard to start planning what mine would look like. It gave me a pretty hard time, so I ended up deciding to do the borders last, after I had already solidified the designs of the characters. After I finished Pomni, I had a bit of a sobering moment where any design after her became impossible to put on paper. I had pretty clear vibes for them in my head, but I mean, at the end of the day, vibes are just vibes, and I needed more than that. So I switched gears and did a sketch lineup of the characters so I could get a good feel for what they would look like together, get their heights correct, and alter their palettes a little so that they would be as cohesive as a set as they were individually. This helped a lot, and helped me get over the lump that was the block keeping me from getting Jax's design the way I liked it. It was frustrating me because I was admittedly the most excited for his design and lore because, come on, there's just so much to work with when it comes to the edgy rabbit. I say that with the utmost affection. But before we get into Jax's design, I want to go on just a little bit of a tangent for a second. I would very much like to talk about episode 7. I know that if you're a hardcore fan, you have probably listened to as many fan songs and fan theories as I have by this point. I wanted to drop my 2 cents on what I think is going to happen before the big reveal inevitably shows itself. Or, I mean, you know, knowing Goose works, she could just leave us on a cliffhanger and say that it's up to interpretation, but we are being optimistic today. Unfortunately, I'm a big fan of the Soma theory. Terrifying. The theory that has been going around, if you don't already know what that is, it's essentially the idea that all of the characters in the circus are not actually human, but copies of their original selves. When they put the headsets on, their brains were scanned and a copy was placed in the circus. Their real selves just took the headset off and walked away. Some people are saying that it helped explain why, when Pomni saw the desk she presumably sat in when she put the headset on, had an empty chair without her body in it. Personally, I really like this theory because it goes along pretty well with the general existential dread that the story has been building up to. Goose said that the story was supposed to be a generally optimistic tale about learning how to find purpose or meaning in a static world. That's not the exact quote, by the way, but it's the same kind of idea. When I think about that, it leads me to believe that the characters are not actually going to get out, and are going to have to come to terms with their eternity and with each other. They might not have a body to return to, which leaves them with the only option of existing in a digital space until whatever hardware is running the circus inevitably gives out. It's a pretty relevant story to be telling, especially in the world we live in my opinion. We are all living in a world where the ground on which we stand and the made-up rules society sets for us are going to eventually become nothing. Nothing is infinite, and the time we are living in is unfortunately one where things we've come to understand about how the world works are coming into question. So how do we deal with living in an entirely new reality? This is what our characters in TADC are dealing with, and, you know, I am all on board for the ride. There is also the possibility that the circus isn't actually a punishment, which, by the way, leads me to something I wanted to say about Jax. Everybody has been leaning pretty hard into the hit-and-run theory for his character, that he accidentally killed a little girl with his car and then just drove off, and the guilt is eating him alive. A lot of people are believing this because back when Goose was asked who deserved to be in the circus the most, she said Jax. Now, we have no way of knowing if this theory holds water because Goose is notorious for misleading us with clues that seem clear, but are never what they seem to be on the surface. With that in mind, I had this thought recently. When Goose said that Jax deserved to be in the circus the most, neither she nor the person that asked the question explicitly prefaced the exchange by considering the circus to be a punishment. What if, instead of Jax deserving to be there as a punishment, he deserved it as a safe haven? Some people theorized that his reality was that he was kidnapped or in a domestic abuse situation. At this point, I think that any theory is as likely as the other, but if the ones along these lines are remotely true, then yeah, I think this escape from a doomed life is quote-unquote deserved. We don't know what was going on in the other characters' lives when they ended up in the circus. We only know a broader version of their stories. What if they were all facing some kind of impossible future? Whether it be sickness, social constraints, or just being unable to find their place, maybe they all secretly wanted an escape from reality. Granted, I don't think that that any of them would say that living under Kane's thumb was exactly what they envisioned. Be careful what you wish for, I guess? So with that all said, I'm about to briefly go into the Soma theory a bit deeper. So if you're severely depressed or struggle with mental health, you might skip to the timestamp on screen. Okay, so let's get into it. All of this leads to the devastating existentialism that comes with their specific situation. If the Soma theory is true, then the characters have to come to terms with the fact that them, the real them, is out there continuing to live the life they were given, while the copy they became is destined to live in a digital space forever, completely conscious and with memories of being human fully intact. You know how lucky any of us are to be born, scientifically speaking? It's like a 1 in a zillion chance or something ridiculous in the grand scheme of things. And imagine knowing that and then having a piece of your mind left behind, forced not to live the rest of your life with your body. You will never know what the real you goes on to do because you will be stuck within a digital space forever. Hate that! And I don't like to think about it too much. But it is extremely interesting. Yes, the characters are stuck there. Yes, they are humans destined to live as essentially advanced AI. But they are also presented with the opportunity of mastering their fate and banding together to create the best out of their new reality. I don't know, if you want to get really fun and sciencey and futuristic with it, it kind of gives me Edge Runners vibes. They could go crazy with it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on where the story might go. What do you guys think? I'm really in love with how many different theories there are out there. The Amazing Digital Circus really does have an epic community. Anyway, when it comes to Jax, I wanted to lean all the way into two things: keys and abstraction. Jax will be the key master, and rather than find all the keys himself, he is actually stuck with them all the time. The catch? He has no idea what they are for. His character gimmick is the mysterious key ring that holds a key molded for every other character in the circus. They are massive and serve no obvious purpose, which frustrates Jax to no end because not only is this gimmick useless on the surface, but it taunts him with all the possibilities of holding the keys to, well, everything, but being unable to use them. Also, did I mention that the ring itself is a portal? Yeah, so this is where his trickster side comes in. Jax absolutely uses his portal for nefarious means, but only if it doesn't involve going through a surface. Since his keys don't have a function yet, he tried to use the teleportation to sneak into another character's room once, as you do, and learned the hard way that once he passes through a solid surface, he couldn't do it again with the same one. It was as if Kane had patched the code on the surface, considering Jax's gimmick to be the same as hacking or breaking the game. And that was how he once got stuck in Kinger's room for 3 days, since Kinger never uses his room. Also, for some eerie and unknown reason, Kinger's room only has a lock on the outside. For Jax's outfit, I wanted to keep the pink overalls as a base theme. I just expanded upon it. I mainly leaned into the design elements that I found in these references. I initially wanted to just cover him in different pins, patches, and keychains, but it became apparent very quickly that it looked more messy than fun. He was going to have pins colored after all the characters that had abstracted before as mementos, which was a fun idea in concept, but in execution it didn't really feel like something he would actually do. So instead, Jax's clothes just became, hostile. I put the jagged edges on his pants to mimic his teeth. On the inside of his overall, I put the pattern of eyes in a shade that was kind of difficult to see. I repeated that idea on the bottom of his pants, and honestly, it makes his clothes kind of hard to look at, which is the point. I'm sure it could be counted as some kind of metaphor for how Jax inserts himself everywhere, but also doesn't really want to be perceived. And then there's the abstraction. He's got a permanent midriff of just so many abstraction eyes. No one knows why he's like this, including himself, and why it has completely devoured him. One day he was completely normal, and the next, a third of his body was abstracted. The cast started to whisper in private, talking about how if you looked closely at the portal ring Jax carried, you could occasionally see eyes of the abstracted within it. It's pretty much just a curse because he has trypophobia, and being covered in eyes is not great. Essentially, I've accidentally created a design that makes Kane's beef with him seem just as bad as Kinger's, but you know, that's what I'm doing, wherever the wind takes me. The thought of making Jax the unofficial master of the abstract crossed my mind, similar to having Pomni be the master of the void. But when I thought about it, I felt that those ideas could lead to some very different and neat designs, so I stayed away from it this time. But when it comes to Jax's abstraction, the reach is slowly spreading each time a member of the circus abstracts, as if he's absorbing them. Understandably, this disturbs Jax quite a bit, especially because it doesn't make sense and Kane pretends not to notice. But he sees it, and it weighs on him more than he'd care to admit. Also, come on. This is just me doing the he pretends not to care, but actually feels more than most people thing. You know, the reason we all like Jax so much even though he's a massive jerk. I wonder who else we know is kind of like that. Oh, I think I see it now. By the way, all of these characters also have a serious body count of the murder variety, and if the hit and run theory about Jax is true, then, welcome to the club, bunny boy. Obligatory piercings, yes. The boxes are being checked here. Also, I gave his feet and ears a bit more detail when it came to texturing his fur, but I left his head mostly as it is in the show. I was never really a fan of imagining his avatar from the show being actually fuzzy. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know why. He just looks so noodly that my brain can't wrap around the idea. But I just prefer his silhouette with a smoother, round cartoon face. Thankfully, it came together nicely with the mix of textures, and I'm quite happy how he ended up looking. While the rest of this footage plays, I'm gonna do a quick story time about meeting Michael Kovac for the first time. It's a whole thing. So, back when episode 6 had just dropped, it was roughly a week before I was going to be a vendor at a convention artist alley for the very first time. Up until that episode dropped, I was pretty much chest deep in the Has-Been Hotel fandom. My interest in the Amazing Digital Circus had reduced to a lull. Then episode 6 dropped. When I say I did the artist equivalent of blacking out, an idea of a Jax illustration came to me at the ripe old hour of 3 a.m. and I just went down on it the next day. I spent the entire day working on it. I wanted to get it exactly as I envisioned on a limited time schedule. There was a deadline to meet, after all. If I wanted to take this to my first ever Artist Alley experience, it needed to be done and fast. The day after I had this experience, the website for the con finally updated their celebrity guests announcements, and who do you think, out of all the possible voice actors in the anime and indie animation space, was going to be there? That's right. Michael Kovac himself was on the list. The stars had aligned, and I had a print with Jax on it 1 week after the new episode, and the voice actor for the character was going to be at the event I was vending at. That's when I realized, even if I ordered right then, the usual printing service I used wouldn't be able to print and mail my new illustration in time for the con, so I had to turn local. I went to FedEx, they didn't have a photo printer. I went to CVS, but each print was something like $15 each, and I was not paying that for the quantity I needed. I was calling around town looking for someone who could rush an overnight order for the next day, Yes, the next day, because by this point we were already a day before I would have to set up my table for the con. By some miracle, I found a local printing and advertising business that could do it for me. They were really kind and took my order over the phone, which enabled me to bring the Jax prints to the event. Soon it was time for the con to start, and it turned out that I was just about the only artist in the artist alley with a Jax print that specifically referenced the new episode. Everybody was stopping by asking me how the hell I managed to draw it so fast, and I just locked in, man. I don't know. But it was nice because people were looking for prints for Michael to sign. Here's the thing about meeting voice actors that I didn't know until my first experience vending. You have to pay a pretty chunky amount to get a signature and a picture. They are priced separately too. I knew that voice actors were paid for these events, but I just didn't realize that this was the way they were doing it. I know that if the voice actors had a choice, they would give everybody a signature and a picture for free, but that's just how we roll. Also, they sold commissioned prints of their characters so that you could get them signed. This will be relevant in a second. So it's the second day of the con, and I'm waiting for my chance to leave my booth and go meet Michael myself with one of my prints in hand. The con was in a smaller city, so it wasn't as chaotic as something like, say, in Japan. And by the time I decided to take my chances, the line for meeting Michael was empty. No one, not a soul. So I waited over there, and it dawned on me that I hadn't ever met a voice actor before, and I hardly knew what to say. I really just admire their work as a fellow creative and wanted to say so, but I'm pretty sure I blanked and just rolled the dice. He was super nice and just a cool person to talk to. He congratulated me on being a vendor for the first time and offered me a signature for free. It was a really nice experience. And since there was no one waiting in line, we just chatted for a bit. He recognized my art from other attendees bringing it over for him to sign, which was pretty neat. He even teased about a scene from episode 7, which I am now sure was Jax's abstract trip scene, saying that based on my design, I would like that scene a lot, though he didn't go into any detail then, just to be clear. He was excited for all the fan art that would come out of that secret scene, and now that episode 7 has come out, I hope he's enjoying the aftermath because, man, people are making some awesome stuff. Anyway, that's my crazy first ever Artist Alley experience. After that, I'm pretty excited to do another event. Alrighty, so this was part 1 of my Maximalism Amazing Digital Circus series. Part 2 of this series will be Ragatha and Kinger. I plan to go a bit more in depth about the AU lore in that video. Before that, I'm planning on making another Has-Been Hotel video, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope this video helped inspire you or maybe just got you through some tedious work. If you like the art you saw in this video or any of the art you see going by on the screen, consider stopping by my Ko-Fi print shop. Any and all support means the world and helps me continue making videos like this for you all. The links to both my print shop and keychain sticker shops will be in the description below. Let me know what you thought about these crazy designs, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Stay safe out there. Ciao!